It's great to be here. It's an honor for me to address you this morning, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you a little bit about some of the things of mutual interest, this 20th year celebration of commitment between the United States and Azerbaijan. As Susan mentioned, I represent the 2nd Congressional District of Texas. You may not know where that is. We have the representative from that area from the state, Joe Desatel, over here. But down in Texas, on that international border that Texas has with Louisiana, there is a little town called Port Arthur, Texas. And in Port Arthur, Texas, folks there in the surrounding area consider it to be the energy capital of the United States, which it is. It was there in that area where oil, as we call it and pronounce it, was first discovered at a little place in Texas called Spindletop back in 1901. Captain Anthony Lucas, struck oil on a hilltop called Spindletop. A year later, the well was producing 17.5 million barrels of oil a day. Some of the biggest oil companies in the United States started in that area. Oil company probably you may have heard of, Texaco, originated there. And what happened there in Texas transformed really an agricultural community into an oil and gas community. And of course, when that happened, when oil was discovered at Spindletop, other prospectors rushed in. In 1911, in the town that I live in called Humble, Texas, there was another oil company started. It's called Humble Oil and Refining Company. They later changed their name to Exxon. You may have heard of them. We still call them Humble Oil and Refining Company where I come from. And they chartered and started with $150,000 and became that great oil company, Exxon. So Texas has a great history and understanding of oil and gas industry. And it's an honor for me to address that issue along with Azerbaijan, because they, like Texas, have that energy enthusiasm that really, I think, in the oil and gas industry, that's the frontier spirit of the can-do attitude to be able to become energy sufficient. And I commend Azerbaijan on that. And so now we are here in 2012, and Texas has the refineries that are the most active in the nation, all because of the oil and gas industry. You know, we know a little bit about oil and gas in Texas. Folks in Oklahoma know a little bit too, which is the other international border we have with Oklahoma and then Louisiana. But anyway, it's kind of in our bones, you know. It's our DNA that we just kind of raised that way. That oil and gas is something when is necessary. So we have that common bond, not just Texas, but the United States with Azerbaijan and their attitude about energy and about developing the resources, the God-given resources that Azerbaijan has. And so I appreciate that oil boom mentality, that frontier spirit. You know, Baku was one of the original boom towns in the 19th century, but instead of allowing capitalism to bring wealth and energy and freedom into the area, the Soviets came in. And in my opinion, they just shut down freedom, and they shut down the freedom of capitalism as well. So that oil underneath that ground just sat there while the equipment rusted away in the hot sun. To me, that is the mentality and has been the mentality of the old Soviet regime, take an industry and not allow it to prosper, but to destroy it. So in 1991, that all changed. It took 70 years. The communist system finally crumbled to the best, to the benefit of the entire world, and that Soviet philosophy is now on the the ash heap of history. So I believe that freedom, economic freedom, political freedom is one of those God-given rights to all people everywhere, and it returned to Azerbaijan. I've been to the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. I was in Eastern Europe when it was under communist philosophy, and it's a great experience for those of us who want to know how it used to be and how folks in Azerbaijan understand it, how it used to be, and how people for years yearned to be free, that way we're all made, the way we're made deep down inside to be a free and independent people and not be oppressed by government. So communism and the yoke of communism has been shed, and diplomatic relationships came back to Azerbaijan and the United States on March the 6th, 1992. 10 years later, or 10 days later, the embassy opened in Baku for the United States. So our two countries have only grown closer. That is a good thing, that we have grown closer. Azerbaijan is now not just politically independent, but is economically independent. Most countries are not, and I commend Azerbaijan for being that way. What we need to do between our two countries, one thing we should do is have constant cultural exchanges, but also student exchanges, so that we can teach students from both countries what takes place in our nation and our nations, and that will bring us closer together. In 2006, the BTC pipeline started delivering oil after the United States backed that construction. That was a good decision. The pipeline can deliver 1 million barrels of oil a day from Azerbaijan to Turkey. As an outsider, I encourage the relationship between Turkey and Azerbaijan so that those two countries can work together, not just with each other, but that builds a better relationship in the region and with the United States. Last October's agreement between Turkey and Azerbaijan on a new transit route is the latest sign of independence, or economic independence is growing. I believe in competition, I believe in alternatives, and it's good for Azerbaijan, it's good for the region as well. It is in the interest of both countries to diversify the European market so it cannot be manipulated by other actors in the region who want just a monopoly on energy and energy delivery systems. The pipeline helps economic security, but also political security for Azerbaijan, and that is good for the United States and the region. So more agreements like this will bring prosperity to both of our countries. But with all of the prosperity, we must also recognize the importance of being vigilant. We can learn to make sure that the history of oil development can teach us that how a government reacts to its own natural resources affects the future. Oil wealth for a nation should be developed and promoted to prevent corruption in any government. In 1980, the 30% of the world's governments were democratic. Now it's about 60%. Yet almost all of the democratic governments that emerged during that period were in countries with little or no oil. Azerbaijan is bucking this trend, and I commend them for their continued quest for not only oil production, but for democracy as well. Oil can be a curse or it can be a benefit to a nation, and it depends on how that nation takes care of its oil resources, for good or for items that are not so good. So with 7 billion barrels of proven oil reserves and 30 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas in Azerbaijan, there's always going to be challenges, but that brings opportunity. It brings opportunity for Azerbaijan, it brings opportunity for the relationship between the United States, and it brings opportunity for us to have a mutual concern and development. It's good that Azerbaijan understands to be focused on how the development of its oil reserves can promote security for the entire region. As the world grows, in my opinion, it becomes more of a hostile place. It becomes a hostile place with turmoil throughout the world. It rises its ugly head every once in a while. And this development in Azerbaijan can bring, in my opinion, stability to this region, which is important. And it's important to have those free and fair elections. So in a democracy, people get to decide the type of government that they want. You know, it's vital to all democracies, not just Azerbaijan, but the United States as well, that we preserve and expand our basic human rights in our own countries and promote those in other countries throughout the United States. So, candidly, we need to have more candid conversations about some of those issues regarding human rights, locally and internationally, to try to make sure that other peoples throughout the world have those basic rights that we all are born with. Azerbaijan's come a long way in the last 20 years, and as illustrated on the video that was before us, the country has boomed economically, and it's shown in its development of new facilities, new cities, new infrastructure that really isn't taking place in all countries in the world. I also believe that, as was alluded to or mentioned by some of our fellow members of Congress, Azerbaijan has not just talked about being a good friend and ally of the United States, it has aided the United States. And it has aided the United States in time of military conflict, has been there not just verbally supporting, but has put troops in the field. I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq, Kosovo. I've seen our troops, and let me tell you something, and those of you with military backgrounds know this. When you are on the battlefield with other people, you develop a strong relationship. And it may be a military relationship that starts out, but it continues after that military conflict is over with. And the folks in Azerbaijan have sent those troops, and troops are still in Afghanistan, working along with other allied nations and the United States primarily, to develop a secure area, but also developing a relationship, a personal relationship that helps both of our countries down the road. And I commend the country of Azerbaijan by not just talking about helping out on the war on terror, but actually being involved in it. And Azerbaijan should be proud of the fact that they are doing so to promote human rights and democracy and the concept of freedom throughout the world. You know, after 9/11, Azerbaijan was one of the first countries to make that phone call to the United States to volunteer access to its airspace and to its ports. Thank you for that. We appreciate that as a nation here in the United States. So I want to congratulate you for your hard work. I want to congratulate you for being here in the United States to develop the bond and increase the bond between our two countries. It is good. It's a good thing that's taking place. But I also want to invite you to come down to Texas, to the energy capital of the world, visit with us, get a pair of boots, and learn how to say howdy appropriately. And that's just the way it is. Thank you very much.